Most experts don't have an expertise problem, they have a communication problem. They know their subject deeply, they're good at what they do, and yet they still walk out of a room where nobody quite understood what it was they're offering. I want to talk to you today about a specific kind of talk. Most people don't even know it exists, and once you see it, you can't unsee how often you've been giving the wrong type. I'm going to be talking about a TEDx-style talk. Now, let me be clear about what I'm not saying. I'm not telling you that you need to do a TEDx talk. Some of you should, and it's a wonderful thing when it's right. But TEDx is not the best move for every business. For some businesses, it's a genuinely terrible move. What I want to be talking about, or what I am talking about here, is the style. Because the style is the thing that transfers. It works on the red dot, it works in the boardroom, it works at a networking event, a conference, a pitch, a webinar, or a video like this. The style is captivation. That's what we're here for. Now, I've been coaching TEDx speakers for over 11 years, more than 100 of them at this point. I've sat with people in the night before they walk out onto the red dot, and I've watched what happens to them afterwards. For the last 2 years at TEDx University of Waikato, 20% of our speakers have been selected for TED's Editor's Choice. What does that mean? Well, globally, only around 6% of TEDx talks receive that award. We score over 3 times higher than the global average. Now, I'm telling you that not to impress you, but because I want you to know that everything I'm about to share and show you came out of that room, came out of that process. So, there are 3 types of talks. There's the educational, where you teach, and the audience leaves knowing something. So success means they understood. There's the sales, you persuade. The audience leaves having decided. Success means they bought. But captivation is different. You open a door. The audience leaves wanting you. Success means they come to you. Educational and sales talks both close a loop. You start something, you finish it, and the transaction is complete. Learned it, bought it, done it. The captivation talk does the opposite. It opens a door, and then the audience walks through it towards you. That's the entire difference, and it's the difference between leaving the event exhausted and leaving an event with people coming after you, looking for you. So, here's what I see over and over. Experts defaulting to the educational talk all the time. Because it's what we're trained to do, and because we're afraid that if we don't prove how much we know, we won't be taken seriously. So what do? We cram, we inform, we over-explain. And the audience, well, they nod politely. And they forget, and nothing happens. And the tragedy of this is that what you're doing is coming from a good instinct. You're trying to be useful. The reality is the more you explain, the less they come, the less they take action. Now, at this point, some of you are thinking, that's lovely, Chris, but I run a sewing community, or I'm a brand strategist, or I have a non-profit. I'm not standing on the red dot. So let me tell you what this actually looks like when it's not a TEDx talk. So the sewing creator, she's accomplished. She's got a real following. And when she speaks, she teaches technique. That's the educational talk. It's useful, but it closes the loop. The captivation version of her talk isn't about technique at all. It's about why people sew at 11 at night when they can't sleep. What sewing gives them that nothing else does. This is the same expertise, but it's a completely different talk. And suddenly, she's the one being invited to speak at the expo. And people are finding her and following her. Then we have the brand strategist. Right now, she stands up and lists what she does. Services, processes, gives a few case studies. That's the sales talk. And it closes the loop too. They either buy or they don't. Now, the Captivation version of this talk is one story about a business that nobody could see until they could. She doesn't pitch at all. And people come up afterwards already understanding what she does and why they need her. Then there's the non-profit. Here's an interesting one, because chances are he's been giving Captivation talks for years at this point. It's one idea, a story, a room that has to be moved because you don't get donations without moving the room. It's not about just informing. But he never had a name for it before. The moment he sees the structure, he can take it into so many different places. Into fundraising, into the community board, into every room where the message actually matters. Now, it won't map perfectly onto every single situation. That's why I call it TEDx-style talk rather than a TEDx talk. You adapt it. You take the parts that serve you and leave the rest. But the question I want you asking yourself right now is this: what is the room where people need to understand what you do? And what would happen if they actually did understand what you do? All right, I'll tell you a quick story. Samantha is a senior lecturer in nursing. She loves her job. She's not climbing anything. She's not at the ambitious end of her career, shall we say. And she'd tell you that herself, right? She's good at what she does, and she's happy. Now, she'd always loved TED, so when she found out her university was running a TEDx event, she got excited, and she leaned on a few people to get herself nominated. She worked hard. She had a couple of stories that were genuinely funny, and one that was quite moving. And she delivered a phenomenal talk. The talk was put online, and I caught up with Samantha a few months later. She said, "Chris, so much has changed." She's been asked to speak at events all around New Zealand. She's been invited to speak in the UK. And then she told me about a phone call. She got a phone call from a bishop. He'd seen her talk, and when she got the call, she genuinely thought it was one of his students pranking her, winding her up. She was like, "Oh, yeah, you saw my talk, rah, rah, rah." And it was only as he kept going that she started to think, hang on, this might be real. And then sure enough, an email following up the call came through, and it was real. He'd watched her talk, and he wanted to back her. His organisation has a community fund, and they wanted to support a submission for a grant, a fund in the order of $1.4 million, to support the work she'd been talking about. Now, her talk was about elder care and about how much the importance of teaching nurses to care for an aging population and how that's different from other nursing things that they currently teach in the curriculum. Now, that submission is in process right now, as I speak to you. It hasn't been decided, and it may never come to fruition. But understand what happened here. A bishop watched a talk, picked up the phone, and went looking for her. She didn't chase any of that. Samantha wasn't hustling. She wasn't networking. She wasn't building a personal brand. She gave one talk, and the opportunities came to her. That's what a Captivation talk does. It doesn't close a loop, it opens a door. And people walk through it towards you, sometimes for years to come. Now, I'll tell you another story. Pamela chaired the board of a food rescue charity, And her problem was the networking event. She'd go along and she'd have to explain from scratch to one person at a time what food rescue was, why it mattered, and then she'd do it again and again and again. She'd get through maybe half a dozen conversations and leave the event completely drained. Every single time, just knackered. That's the educational talk delivered one person at a time all night long. It's exhausting, and it doesn't scale past your own stamina. Now, Pamela was volunteered by her board to do a TEDx talk. She didn't consider herself a public speaker, and she was quite nervous. But she worked hard, and she was terrific. I think she was great. But here's the real win, and it wasn't the talk she gave on the night. Afterwards, Pamela changed how she did events entirely. She'd go to the organiser beforehand and say, "Can I speak? 15 minutes if you got it, or 10 or 5, I'll fit into whatever you have." And she'd give her talk to the group. And then she'd step off the stage and people would come to her, already knowing what she did, already understanding why it mattered, and already suggesting ways that they could help. She stopped explaining and she started being understood. And in the end, Pamela only went to events where she could speak, because anything else was a waste of her energy. One clear message did what 100 conversations couldn't. That's the leverage. Pamela didn't become a better networker. She built one asset and then used it over and over and did it. It did the explaining for her at scale, while she kept her energy for the work that actually mattered. Samantha's talk was on a red dot. Pamela's started on the red dot and ended up in function rooms and church halls and community centres. That sewing creator we talked about will end up at a craft expo, the brand strategist at a conference, and the non-profit at a community event. Same skill, entirely different venues. Because Captivation isn't a format. It's a way of building and delivering a message so that people lean in, remember it, and come looking for you. Once you can do that, you can do it in a pitch, you can do it in a keynote, in a workshop, in a webinar, in a conversation across a table. That's why I'm not selling you a TEDx talk. I'm talking about the thing underneath the talk, which is far more useful and which you'll use for the rest of your career. Clarity, structure, flow, performance. 4 parts in that order, and the order is critical. Most people start with the last one, which is exactly why it doesn't work. Oh, and a quick word on the part most people dread. Memorization. It isn't memorizing. Not really, not the way you're thinking of it. These are your stories. You already know them. The work we do is learning to say what you already know in a way that flows and that lands with the audience and stays available to you under pressure. That's a very different thing from learning lines, learning Hamlet or Shakespeare or something. And it's also a skill you get to keep. So before I go, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop in the comments below, what's the one thing you're taking away from this talk? If this has landed for you, there are 2 more things to this training, and they're free. Part 2 is about finding the message worth building everything around. And there's real work in there you can do straight away. Part 3 shows you the architecture underneath the talk that opens the doors and gets people coming towards you. This is all happening inside this community. So if you're watching this video now, hit the join button, and depending on when you're watching this, they will either be coming soon, these videos, or they're already there waiting for you. There's also the audience captivation checklist, It's already in there. 5 minutes, 12 questions, and you'll know whether your next talk captivates or just informs. All right. I look forward to seeing you on the inside.